So, reading through Stephen Wolfe's book, The Case for Christian Nationalism, there have been several things that I have found somewhat concerning as both a Christian and an American. And as I mentioned last time, it has a logical problem in calling itself a book of reformed political theory. I wanted to bring out a few other things, and this particular video will talk about his issue with a lack of scriptural citations. I'm reading from page 16 in the book here, and he argues the first is that I assume, and the first being his assumption for a Christian political theory. The first thing that I assume is the Reformed theological tradition, and so I make little effort to exegete biblical text. Some readers will complain that I rarely appeal to Scripture to argue for my positions. I understand the frustration, but allow me to explain. I am neither a theologian nor a biblical scholar. So, this is supposed to be a Christian political theology, and it's supposed to come from the Reformed tradition. The Reformed tradition has a series of five solas, or things that it sets on alone. And one of those is sola scriptura, or scripture alone. This was supposed to contrast it with Catholic views of things, which believe that scripture plus tradition, plus the decisions of any councils, would be binding upon the Christian conscience. The reformers argued that it should be based upon scripture alone. That would be the basis, the full basis for Christian faith and practice. So the fact that he's not relying on scripture for his arguments is somewhat problematic, because if it's a basis for Christian political theory, one would think that scriptural citations would be quite common. I will grant that he cites a lot of Christian thinkers, and occasionally those quotes involve scriptural citations, but his scriptural citations that are his alone in his interpretation are very few and far between. And this is especially the case when he defines the nation. And this is a little bit further on into the book, around page 135 ish. There's a 15-page section of a chapter that deals with sort of defining what the nation is in terms of, space and ethnicity. And then that doesn't really appeal to scripture hardly at all. There is one reference to Jeremiah 48, and I was looking through that, and basically that's about it, other than a couple of little citations where Calvin or Augustine or somebody like that had come up with some scriptural analysis for making a point. He's more likely to refer to people like Cicero and Plato and Aristotle, who lie outside the Christian tradition. Now, it might be the Western tradition, but it's not specifically the Christian tradition. And I find that kind of interesting for a book of Christian political theory. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments.